I was 20 years old at the time, working at a Chinese food place in the mall. I don't know if any of you've ever wondered, but all the restaurants at a mall's food court are connected by a long hallway behind them that only mall employees are allowed access to. Due to only workers going through there, and for it being hidden, you can imagine that the place is pretty solitary. This is important because this is where the events took place. Now on to the story. There was this cook in the restaurant who, for anonymity's sake, I'll refer to as Greg. Greg was Chinese and didn't speak Spanish, my native language, nor English, only Mandarin. He only understood certain words in Spanish like rice, noodles, chicken, and other food items that he cooked so that when we yelled them into the kitchen, he knew what to bring out. Also, I don't know how old he was, but he was easily over 60. So Greg, despite the language barrier, was a very bubbly person. Ever since I started working there, I noticed how he always made silly noises when he came up front to deliver his food, and all the other girls would laugh. He generally seemed very sweet and friendly, and I never heard any of the girls complain about him at all. For all I could tell, he was just friendly with everyone and harmless. With time, as I stopped being the new girl, Greg would become comfortable around me too, and make beep-beep noises when he came to the front to deliver food as his way of asking me to step out of the way for him. It was actually kind of hilariously cute, and all my other coworkers, like I said, found him pretty harmless, so I began to feel comfortable around him too. A couple of months into the job, I was already familiar with everyone in the staff, Greg included, so I would always wave hello or goodbye to him, and he'd give me a smile and wave back. I never thought anything weird of our interactions because they were the same with everyone else he interacted. Until one day I was getting back to my shift after my break. I pushed through the employee door to enter the long hallway I mentioned earlier. You could hear noises from the other workers inside their respective restaurants, but no one was really outside in the hall. As I was walking towards the restaurant I worked at, I saw that Greg was just then getting out for his break. He immediately smiled and said my name in the thick accent he always said it with, and I smiled back at him. I didn't feel at all threatened because, like I've probably mentioned a million times by now, he had never given me reason to feel threatened. He's still smiling at me, standing in front of the entrance to my job, so I couldn't really just walk past him. Just as I was nearing him, he extends his arms, basically asking me for a hug. I'd seen him hug other girls before, so, again, I thought nothing of it and went in for the hug. Call me naive. At first, it was all fine and dandy, but my shift was about to start, so I had to go. He had been hugging me for a bit too long as well, so not only was I getting antsy, but also uncomfortable. I broke the hug and tried to push him back gently, signaling to him I needed to go, and this is when I began to panic. You see, when I tried to push him away, he actually held me tighter and wouldn't let go. I was confused, so I tried to push against him again, this time a bit more obviously, but he held on even more, pressing me against him. This is when I realized my naivety caused me to make a huge mistake. I turned my head to glare at him, but the moment I did, he leaned down as if expecting me to look and tried to kiss me. Okay, now I was really freaking out because this was the first time someone tried to come at me so aggressively, and he didn't speak any of the languages I spoke, so I didn't know how to tell him to let me go other than with actions. And before you yell at me for not screaming, at the time I was so shocked that I didn't even think of it. I kind of shut down in that department and instead tried to figure out a way to make him let go. All this time, as I'm thinking what the heck to do, he's still trying to kiss me, keeping me in place no matter how much I struggled and actively following my head with his lips to try to plant one on me. It didn't matter if we didn't speak the same language. I think it was obvious I wasn't comfortable, so I can't say that he didn't know what he was doing. It was clear that he wasn't going to let me go until I kissed him, so I did what I first thought of. I stopped moving my head and somehow managed to gather enough courage to look him right in the eye. I saw him lean in again for my lips, and I pretended I was going to let him kiss me. And then, literally at the last second, I turned my head to the side to try and make him kiss my cheek instead. It sort of worked. I wasn't fast enough, for I still felt his lips peck the corner of my mouth. I felt disgusted, but at least it wasn't as he wanted it. Just as I hoped, as soon as he planted one on me, he broke the hug, holding me at arm's length and gave me this huge grin. He then patted my shoulder before finally letting me go and walking away. I stood there shaken, not really knowing what to do. Eventually, I went back to work, but my coworkers asked me if I was okay since apparently I was pale as paper and my arms couldn't stop shaking. I just shrugged them off. I never reported this to my boss, nor did I say anything to my coworkers, partly because I thought the chef was family and they'd fire me rather than him, but mostly because I was stupid. However, I did avoid him at all costs for the remaining time I worked there and never treated him the same. I also never went alone to the kitchen nor entered the hallway until it was literally a minute for me to clock in. Eventually, I quit and never returned to that place. I heard he also quit not long after I had. Tickets for my favorite group, BTS, were going on sale. Getting tickets for them is hell, and having a good laptop and Wi-Fi was key to upping your chances of snatching a good seat. My university's Wi-Fi was complete ass, so I decided that I would go around to various fast food places and test their Wi-Fi to see which one was best. This wasn't too hard to do since my university was walking distance from an abundance of various restaurants and fast food places, plus more food places that were a few minutes away by car or bus. One of the places I decided to test was McDonald's, which was only a 5-minute drive from my university. I had my boyfriend take me, and we went inside and set up my laptop, iPad, and my phone. We ordered something to snack on as well because you can't pass up the opportunity of McDonald's fries if you're in McDonald's. In front of our table were a group of old guys who looked around the age where death would be knocking on their door soon. My boyfriend and I were busy checking the Wi-Fi speed, conversing and giggling when one of the old guys decides to jokingly make a comment along the lines of how we shouldn't be doing homework on a weekend and how teenagers are always working or into their phones. I don't remember the exact wording he said, but it was along these lines. We both just awkwardly chuckled and then went back to what we were doing and tried to look busy. Apparently old people don't care if you're busy whatsoever because he kept making jokes and speaking to us and telling us to stop working, etc. Notably, the majority of his remarks and conversation were directed towards just me and not to my boyfriend. Now I was already kind of nervous because people randomly talking to me makes me a little antsy, especially ones who keep on rambling after I make it clear I don't want to talk anymore. But him being an older man added to my nervousness even more due to how creepy and predatory they can be. He starts asking questions that are more personal, like where do I go to school and how old I was and whatnot. I was getting uncomfortable at this point, but answered his questions and told him the college I attended and how old I was. Looking back now, I don't think me telling him the truth about it was that harmful. He probably forgot as soon as I told him. He also starts complimenting me and saying how pretty I was. All the while he's doing this, the other old men were either laughing or telling him to leave the poor girl alone. He starts to make some comments on me and my boyfriend's relationship as well, saying how we were cute and it's nice to see young couples and how long we've been with each other. After we answer, he laughs and says, "Well, if you ever get tired of him and want to look for someone else, I'm always available." Laughs. "You can kill me and get some money." Laughs. I was 100% uncomfortable at this point, and just laughed along nervously while scooching closer to my boyfriend. I didn't think he was serious though, and was just trying to joke around with us to seem likable or cool, but him even suggesting that was creepy and uncalled for. He finally left us alone after that as he chuckles to himself and goes back to talking to the old men. After a few minutes, I asked my boyfriend if he could grab me some things from the car because I wasn't feeling too good due to reasons. As soon as he left, the old guys and his friends get up too, and I hoped they would just walk out and pass by my table without saying a word to me. But apparently I have bad luck, so instead, the same old man talking to me stops to stand right by me. He sees my university ID card and picks it up, making remarks of how good I looked in the picture and how I looked even prettier in person and just looking me up and down. His friends chuckle and tell him to leave the poor girl alone, and I hoped he would clean the wax out his ears and listen and leave me alone. He just laughs and places his hand on my shoulder, giving it a light squeeze while exclaiming, "No, I don't want to leave her alone, she's too cute." At this point, I was way past uncomfortable. I knew nothing deadly was going to happen to me because we were in a public place, so I knew they weren't going to kidnap me or anything, but I was still severely creeped out. I was screaming in my head for my boyfriend to hurry back in here so they would leave, because I didn't know what to do besides nervously laugh. They linger for a little while. The old guy looks at my ID card one more time before putting it back down on the table and squeezes my shoulder again. He finally leaves after telling me to have a good day. A few seconds later, my boyfriend returns, and I'm sitting there trying to relax and calm my nerves. I've lived in Colorado for the past 2 years. I am a 16-year-old male and got my first job recently. I work at a certain fast food chain that is known for mimicking Mexican food. This particular restaurant is owned by my AP American History teacher, but that's another story. The pay isn't great and the place isn't exactly clean, but I don't mind because it's only part-time. My coworkers are pretty great. We operate out of an economically depressed area, so almost all of us are minorities. Earlier last week, we got a new employee, a squat Hispanic man named Emir. Working in the fast food industry, you are used to seeing some pretty disgusting people, but Emir was another case entirely. He had a huge, thick mustache that had bits of food matter in it. The rest of his face was unshaven and looked like someone had sprinkled some pubes on his face. One of my other coworkers, Trisha, claimed she saw lice in his face pubes one time. His hair was around the same length as mine, a little less than shoulder length, but his was always incredibly greasy and poorly maintained. A substance I've dubbed hair cheese would collect around his ears and on the nape of his neck after a shift. I shit you not. It looked and smelled like smegma. In hindsight, he probably just used lots of hair mayo and never washed it out. He had very poor personal hygiene. He constantly smelled like testicle musk, somewhat inexplicably. I'd see him spray perfume or apply deodorant, and his smell would never change, like it had been absorbed by his aura of ball rot. He also had teeth that looked like kernels of corn, which is why he grew a big mustache, or so I thought. In short, Emir was not an attractive man. Our shift manager, a kindly old priest named James, was repulsed by him, but our overall manager had hired him because they were old friends or something, and his word was final. Initially, we just had him doing stock in the back because James was afraid to let him near any prep stations. That is, until I went to the back to get some items and found him sitting on the floor, eating shredded cheese and thawed meat. The ground beef we use is cooked once, frozen, and then cooked again, by the handful. So James moved him to cleaning duty. Until that point, I'd never talked to Emir, but suddenly, he'd come around to my prep station and start having these really bizarre conversations. Because of the way these prep stations are formatted, if more than one person is at one, it's hard for someone else to get to the back, where the storage is. So all he was really doing was blocking the way with himself and his mop and bucket, which I never saw him use once. He'd ask me what my underwear size was, and when I got offended, he'd laugh so loud like it was the funniest joke he'd ever heard. During a busy day, he wouldn't be anywhere near me, mainly because there were so many people moving around near the prep stations and lots of people working on the prep stations. But busy days were rare, and so I had to endure Emir. One particularly slow morning, he comes up behind me giggling like a little girl. I turn around to see what he's doing, and he's holding a condom. He tells me that he wants to put it on one of the tacos I was prepping. I was pretty pissed because that sort of thing would get me in more trouble than him. The condom was also unrolled, which made me think that he tried it on before planning to do this. Disgusted, I went to get James. Mid-stride, I looked back and saw him eat the condom. I assume it was because he didn't want to get caught with it. No chewing, just swallowed it whole and then grinned at me with his corn teeth. I told James about it, but he said he couldn't do anything without any real evidence that Emir actually did it. We didn't have CCTV in the back at this point. After this point, Emir's conversations got even more bizarre and sexual. He'd do things like walk up behind and sniff my hair and then remark, "You smell good today." He'd also call me pretty, gorgeous, and beautiful. I complained to James several times and he passed it on to the overall manager, who was looking over the numerous complaints about Emir for what seemed like way too long. He'd also do this thing where he would go, "What if we were gay? Would we be a couple? Ha ha." I'd tell him that not only was I not gay, I was still legally a minor, and he was 30 years older than me. Yeah, but what if? Ha ha. And then he'd come up with these scenarios that honestly physically sickened me. Many of them included rape, abduction, and pedophilia. They seemed more like his personal fantasies instead of what-if scenarios. Yesterday morning I finally snapped when he asked me, "What would you do if you walked into the locker room and I was really hard and you weren't disgusted but kind of turned on?" I told him to fuck off and pushed him over. He looked kind of startled and then scampered away. I didn't see him for the rest of the day. After work, somehow he found me on Facebook, and from then till now he's been creating accounts to send me friend requests. I went into work today and found out he was fired when James needed something cleaned and found Emir playing with himself in the supply closet. A mop handle was involved.